Knowledge Fight. Dan and Jordan, I'm sweating. It's time to pray. Andy in Kansas, you're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Hello, Alex. I'm a first-time caller. I'm a huge fan. I love your work.
Knowledgefight.com. I love you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Winners and Losers. I'm Hank.
Dan.
We're just a couple of dudes who like to sit around and worship at the altar of plants and talk a little bit about... Yeah. Shut up! I'm doing the intro. Talk a little bit about Dan Friesen. Hey,
hello,
everybody.
How are you?
I'm Dan. I'm Hank. Say you're Jorhank. Say you're Jorhank.
I'm Jorhank.
I'm Hank. What's your bright spot?
Oh, man. Okay, you want to know what my bright spot is for real?
Yes, but first let me say, hey, everybody, welcome to episode 213 of the Winners and Losers program. I'm your host, Hank Thompson. Thank you for tuning in. I'm joined by my best friend, Dan Friesen. I paused because I was thinking of if I should say the, immediate denial of something like that. But we're going to talk about...
If other people might be offended, all of your other best friends might be offended by this kind of a proclamation.
Yeah, yes. My best acquaintance would probably be a better way of phrasing that. And... So yeah, anyway, that's how we start the show. I just wanted to do a little fan service for your audience. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Your remarkable success as the premier, I don't know if I like calling you an Alex Jones podcast, even though that's like the core lens. You're more like you're sort of examine the entire right-wing media ecosystem, but your primary microscope, that little wheel thing with the different like lenses on it. They look like udders. That's why I'm doing this. You rotate it, but your main one is obviously Alex Jones. But you flip that thing.
We squeeze that udder.
Yeah, you squeeze that udder. We've got the microscope and the udder metaphors mixed here. But go ahead.
I think what you're saying is fair. Like I think it's fair to just call it an Alex Jones podcast because that is most of what we talk about. But it is the idea that I have is that broader. The broader right-wing media, but I don't take offense to someone just being like, you do an Alex Jones podcast. He's one of the easiest people to understand of that media ecosystem. And I think that there's no one like him. So it's a good case study for understanding a lot of the tricks that a lot of these people use.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I don't take offense.
Okay, good. Yeah, we will definitely get back to talking Alex Jones for sure. Your latest episode about Kelly Rushing, I thought was fantastic. It was like an audio experience. It was it felt like an audio documentary. I was even going to be like, let's edit that into like a whole real documentary. We'll cut it down to like an hour or 45 minutes.
See if we can go find this Kelly Rushing guy, see if he's still alive, and
that'd be interesting.
What he thinks about everything.
Yeah, get some follow-up. That's a fascinating episode, though. You clearly put a lot of work into that. But anyway, so what's your bright spot, Dan? Let's keep let's not lose that one.
Okay, so
besides coming on
I
the podcast,
have been watching the Traders New Zealand. I realized that I've watched all of the Traders except for the New Zealand season. So I went and I've been watching it. And there's a lady on there who's like, I swear on my children's lives that I am not a traitor. And she's not. She is a faithful, right? But everyone is shocked by this.
Oh.
Everyone is like, oh my God, she would say that? I think I have to trust her. If she would say something like that. It's like these New Zealand people have no conception that someone could lie on their children's lives and like no one's gonna come kill their kid. This doesn't mean anything. Like they're so trusting. At least three times people have said like that meant a lot to me. I can't believe you would say that.
She invoked.
I love it. It's
the
cute.
children's declaration is the thing you're locking on there. Is that right? So I don't have any context for this. You're just like a guy who started talking about some religious book he wrote himself. Is this a TV show? Is it like Survivor?
Yes.
Or is it like The Mole?
Sort of.
What is it?
Have you ever played the game Mafia at like a party?
Oh, no. It's been no.
So if you have a big group of people, there'll be like two folks who are secretly selected to be the mafia, and they kill other people while the other people try to figure out who the secret mafia people are. It's basically that, but a TV show, and there's little challenges built in along the way. So there's like traitors, and they kill the faithful. The faithful have to figure out who the traitors are. And there've been a UK version. New Zealand, America, Australia. It's just a easy fucking format.
Does
It's great.
sure. And yeah, those types of formats translate to different countries, and yeah, you didn't. Yeah, when you first learned that American Idol is actually called some other type of idol in a different country, and it's not called American.
Yeah.
It's not American Idol over in Deutschland or whatever. But okay, so
Yeah.
does the trader role flip and change? Are you assigned to the trader role, or is it a season wide? There's like one trader within the entire season arc.
So in a season, a couple people, maybe 2, maybe 3, will be selected as traders at the beginning. Then, like if they get caught as traders, they're eliminated from the game, and then the remaining traders can seduce someone to become a trader. So there's a little bit of fluctuation, but there's no way back from trader to faithful.
Got it.
That doesn't happen.
Okay.
You either get caught or you end up making it to the end of the game.
What's the prize? So what does the winner of the season get?
See, this is what's so fun.
Oh,
The American version is a lot of money. And then the other versions
you get to go to the doctor
are,
for 2 years. Yeah.
the other versions are steeply lower. So like the American one's like $500,000 or something like that. And this New Zealand one is 70 grand. But they show the money in really fun ways.
Okay.
Like bars of silver. So there's just like a pile of bars of silver sitting in the middle of the room. It's awesome.
There has to be some sort of scientific principle of like the Schwarzschild's limit. Like there's like all these limits in terms of when something becomes a black hole. Or what am I doing? Where like how much money can you denote in silver bars that is practical to the point where you now need to switch that to gold bars, because the conversion rate from silver to gold is obviously there's a lot less gold required. So like $200,000 in silver, is that something you could fill up in a Prius? Like a Prius load of silver, I think would be probably your maximum. The towing capacity of a Prius is my.
The first episode of this season, a guy is everyone's given the offer to run to a plinth that has $10,000 in silver on it.
What's a plinth?
And they're plinth,
yeah,
like a little stand. I don't know, a column, a little.
Oh, okay. Like what
a
the
little
Palantir
plinth.
sits upon?
Sure.
Okay.
So everyone has the option to go run and get it. They're kicked out of the game, but they get that silver. And it was funny watching the guy carry the bars of silver to a car. Like it was like, this is
it's not prop silver,
$10,000, but it's uncomfortable.
They get to keep it is the silver. You get to take the silver home.
I think for the sake of watching the show, yes. But
Okay.
I bet you know, you like to keep the illusion there.
What is funny to have a guy struggling to carry lots of silver to his car? Like that is a hilarious. But like at some point you got to go. All right, here, give us the silver back. We'll go over there to the office
check for you.
trailer. We got to check for you.
Yeah. But
that's
last
great.
thing on traders, Alan Cumming is the host of the American version.
Charismatic.
And he is amazing. I
Good.
think he's worth the price of admission alone.
Okay.
But what's your bright spot, Hank?
Well, I did want to follow up. I know it's my show, Dan. Sorry. Okay, you can't bully me like you bully Jordan. All right. Actually, I think Jordan is somewhat ungovernable. To be fair, as all tennis players are. The reward for Survivor in America when it first started was $1 million. Right.
Yes.
Like when was the first season? 2002. Right. Something. 20 years.
We're about to hit season 50. So yeah, it's been about 25 years or so.
Damn. So $1 million, but the
Yeah.
conversion rate, my dad and I were talking about this like a year ago. I looked it up. It's like 1.8 million now. They should up it to 2 million. You're getting $1 million this year. That sucks compared to 1999, 1 million, you know?
Yeah, there was one season that was 2 million, but that was the season of all the winners at war. So everyone who had already won a season was the whole cast. And so they were playing for 2 million. But yeah, I think you just want to win. And I know you're somebody who understands labor. And so
Indeed.
I will say that the first season was longer. The seasons have gotten shorter now. They're like maybe 14 days shorter. So like 2 weeks less time you're out there. So maybe that 0.8 million, you know, maybe you chop that off because of it's less work.
What's the total run then? If it's 2 weeks shorter than
I think, man, I wish I knew. I watch Survivor all the time, and
Okay,
I
that's
think
fine.
it's 20. I think it's 28 days you're out. So I think it's like a month.
Great. Okay, and so they cut it down to okay, fair. All right, yeah, and it's shorter production costs and all that other stuff. All right, good. Well, this is a
That's why they did it. 'Cause they don't want to spend as much money.
I don't blame them.
As a, I guess.
Sure. Hey, you got to get that money. You got to pay for those doctor bills. You know, we're so wrecked with this money stuff. I just don't understand. I mean, it just seems that at some point humanity is going to come to a point of realization that this is just a toxic thing in all of our lives. The amount of the sheer amount of time our brains have to process the concept. The purpose of a society should be to minimize that time. I don't even necessarily think we can get rid of, we'll never get rid of it in our lifetimes, obviously, but like the conditions in which we could finally eliminate its presence will be far away for any of us alive right now. So, but nevertheless, the purpose of life should be to not have to bother with money, to deal with them as little as possible. Like the best metaphor I can come up with is it should function as lubricant, basically. It should empower transactions and allow us to write stuff down. I think its purpose should be to generate receipts, basically, but accessing it and compelling forced work, working, and all the risks people take to access. I'm getting into my whole deal here, but this is basically what my podcast is like, everybody. If you're new to the show, I just bitch about this about money and capitalism and unions and stuff. But yeah,
money should be lube.
Money should be lube. No, actually, lube should be money. Let's switch to but it is torturous. It is just like, oh God, it's just so stupid what it does. This whole thing. How did I get off on that?
Yeah,
that jag.
Yeah. I agree, but you're also dodging the question of what your bright spot is. So I'm gonna bring us back to the center there. If you
perfect, I appreciate
if
that.
you have something.
Well, not much. I'd say avoiding getting mugged. That was cool. That's been an upside in my life lately. I was walking along.
Sure.
It was the dark crepuscular hues of dusk. Not quite night. Probably darkest. It's actually darker kind of because everything is just ugly gray. The lights haven't yet asserted themselves over the street lamps and stuff.
They say that it's always darkest before the dusk.
That's right. Just at the end of dusk. Yeah. It was just this weird. I just was walking along and saw a young man, and he was holding a tool, and I just spotted that it was a needle nose pliers, and he was like looking at his phone, and he stepped out of the way, and I was like, that's interesting. And it was a car idling, right on the sidewalk there, and there was also this big white van, kind of blocked. I don't think the van was idling, but it all happened kind of quickly, and I walked right by him, and I was alerted, and I just sort of saw. I just kind of turned my eye a little and looked back, and I sensed, and he just got right behind me. Like he got right up behind me, way closer than you should if you're just going to share a sidewalk with this person. And as soon as
to almost be outside of any peripheral vision.
Right. Yeah. Maybe not quite that close, I guess, but but my spidey sense went off real hard. And I feel like it's like, okay, I had to take a quick beat to decide, do I just keep going or what do I do now? And because, I guess you want to assume you're not going to get mugged and you just want to keep going. And it's just a guy who's walking on a sidewalk. People are kind of clueless too. They'll just step onto the sidewalk without even realizing, they're in their own space. So I didn't want to assume that something bad was about to happen. But I decided that instead of risking that, I chose to take action, and I just did I stepped real hard U-turn and just walked back the other direction really fast. But I took a big, fast step onto the grass towards the street and then straight back down the sidewalk. Didn't even look back. And I'm a bigger guy, I'm 6'3", long strides. I'm carrying some blubber too, but I don't look like I'd be easy to wrestle. So that might have helped, but I don't. It was just
one of those pliers.
What?
That evens the playing field.
Yeah, yeah. I got plier guard on. So
I don't know. What if he was just walking, and when you turned around, it terrified him that he thought you were going to mug him, and then you both take off running in the same direction.
Could have been. Why are you running? I'm afraid. I've been conditioned to expect.
I'm scared of you.
Yeah. Well, what do you know with the pliers? Yeah, it's just I just listened to my gut though. It was just one of those like something's weird here. I need to move. And then I did actually kind of glance back now that I'm remembering it, and there was like he veered towards this house like a doorway up to an apartment, like around a bush that like where the sidewalk splits the bush. I don't know what I'm trying to describe. So, but I didn't like turn and look. I just kind of glanced back really fast. So that's all I saw. But that might have been. Was he going, deciding to pursue me because I was clearly whatever I did. If let's say he wasn't mugging me, I certainly seemed like a very strange guy on the sidewalk, and that was the risk I took in terms of like appearing to be a wacky guy. But I decided I'd rather that be what happens than me somehow having to fight off a guy mugging me with some sort of weapon. So
yeah. If anybody who doesn't have the context, you look crazy, probably just externally viewing what happened. But you're in your head and assuming there is somebody who's just walking right up behind you. Yeah, your actions make sense. And I think that this is a great bright spot, and here's why.
Oh, good.
It's affirming of your will to live.
Oh.
You're willing to take in the moment affirmative steps that protect yourself.
Yeah,
that's the human spirit.
I appreciate that. That's beautiful. I wish we could hold hands. Thank you. I needed that. I wake up every day disappointed that I'm still alive. Actually, I wake up.
But then when the time comes and the needle nose pliers are out, you survive. You live.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've been in the planning stages of other stuff, so I do have a relativity kind of feeling about. But I do often think like. Yeah, this whole existence thing kind of sucks. What the fuck? They really pulled a good one on me there, Mom and Dad. Thanks a lot, jerks. But that's where sort of my one of my underpinning philosophies of what society should devote itself to, which I believe should be the safety and health of children. I think all problems stem from fucked up childhoods, generally, because that's what prevents you from being able to address all the other problems because you're too busy being screwed up. Essentially, that's more or less the notion. Not that it would be fixed super easily, but I believe that because you can't consent to exist, there's no way to ask a person if they want to be a baby before they become a baby. We owe that person, we're forcing existence on somebody. Therefore, we have a cosmic, maybe call it spiritual, or a sacred obligation to that unborn child who is going to be a human forced into a party they didn't consent to be at. We have an obligation to make their experience as close to a healthy, harmonious, safe, good human experience, including the parts that suck, which are normal, which is accidents, friends dying, everybody you know dying. So like in the best of circumstances,
it's going to happen.
Yeah, shit's going to be bad. Like we don't need extra stress. I think that's one of the poisons of our society too. So what do you think? Do you like my idea?
I think generally speaking, I am in favor of your, what underlies this, which is, focusing on creating a circumstance where children grow as healthily as possible. I think that will solve a lot of problems that exist in society. Maybe not all of them or whatever, but I take issue with your idea that no one consents to being alive.
Okay.
And I think I probably was closer to your side of things. And then I saw this movie. I saw Look Who's Talking, and it heavily implies that you are yourself when you're a sperm. And you have directed thinking about how I want to get in that egg. I gotta go. And so I think that the consent to living thing is called into question by the text of that movie.
I think you're right, actually. And that could be a foundational text for like a new religion, if only those films were more popular. Bruce Willis.
The first one was intensely popular.
It was, right? Yeah. Look Who's Talking 2 was the sequel. Brilliant title. TOO. We got to be clear. And
Look Who's Talking also.
I was just about to make the same joke. Great minds. Yep. But do they... Yes, you're right, because isn't the whole opening sequence a hyper-competitive sperm? I mean, the sperm are very competitive. I guess maybe that is a core argument about human nature, is that the sperm are this super competitive. But maybe there's cooperative factors to the way the sperm do their thing. Because They all give
You
up
think-
once
you
one
think
of them
that-
gets in, right?
Hmm,
I mean, it's
maybe,
like
but
being
that
supportive.
that might just be being a good sport.
That's what I'm
Now,
saying.
that might not be cooperative. That might just be like, well, game's over.
Yeah.
Back it
Yeah.
up.
Like we don't all get to be first chair violin. We don't all get to be the soloist, but we're going to be like,
Yeah.
hey, but it's also not a competition to become the soloist in the middle of the orchestra. That would make a fun orchestra. Like if the XFL and the orchestras combined. I think you've outsmarted me on this one. You're clearly all your training as a reality show competitive, competitive dynamics are imbued in your soul and your bones, because that is the opening of that movie.
And we have to accept that that's real. Like we have to accept that the beginning of that movie is real.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have made a movie about that otherwise.
True.
And so, joking aside, yeah, I think it is a difficult reality that no, we don't really choose to be alive, and that is something that society should take into account. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you achieve that, but I do think that it's a consideration we underplay a little bit.
Right. No doubt. Yeah. I mean, it's not necessarily something you can just flip a switch into, but it's I think there is something cosmic about I don't know why I use the word cosmic a lot, but yeah, the notion of consent. I mean, I'm thinking about with my whole project about the Young Turks documentary, just the concept of leverage and consent and fairness and democracy and all these sort of, they're not quite interchangeable, but they are informative of each other. And the notion of consenting to bullshit. And if you could know what your life was going to be like beforehand, would you consent to that? Would you say yes? Not, it's almost like what's that movie? Defending Your Life. It's like the prequel to that would be like previewing your life, sort of. Like, would you say yes if this was what you were going to get? Maybe not. I don't know. That's a little bit more specific. But the idea of making, I think there's a humanity, an evolution, or some sort of great leap of collective consciousness towards the safety of children. Like, if we're not making children safe for the ways that children are hurt, both through the vector of their family, where all sorts of abuse flows and all sorts of dangers lurk. You can get lucky. Well, maybe not lucky, but not all children, obviously, is what I'm saying. But in America, every society has its own kind of matrix of ways children's lives are harmed, or at least delayed, and it just basically depresses all of a person's potential to have to overcome childhood trauma in their later years. And then it also informs the type of self that they develop and the kind of personality that they develop. And so I think we should do a universal global government. Like, we could start moving towards your topic of interest.
Oh shit.
But not to say that I think you flip a switch and do that, but collectively, can't we agree that that period of a person's life is so critical to be healthy and safe and with space to experiment and explore and accommodating for the different types of learning styles? Failure is also an important part of childhood. Some kids are going to get unlucky. They'll get into an accident here and there. Cars used to be the number one killer of children in America. Now it's guns. Like, what the fuck? We should also, that's a good argument against cars. I'm also huge against car supremacy. I think the car dominance is just so stupid here in this world for so many reasons. But
so much of it's so unnecessary.
But the thing is that the conditions for healthy children is also the same conditions for healthy parents. Children need healthy parenting, and largely we need more community. I don't know if you'd say community parenting per se, but although we did evolve as community parents. Like, if you were alive back 70,000 years ago and you were being raised by two adults only, something had gone catastrophically wrong in your life. That is a absolute nightmare, to have only two adults looking after you. And yet now that's the premise of what's ideal in our world right now. So the reason why I think the focus should be on childhood is because that's when you can do the most good for people in terms of the way stress impacts the rest of their life. But also, the main thing is that we need to then reorder the entire economic system to help the parents. The purpose of society should be to make parenting as easy as possible. And mainly, and then I'll let you talk because I'm just throwing this at you here. This is what I call asshole factory. I just want to turn down the asshole factory, because stressed out kids become stressed out adults, and stressed out adults are what is how you produce assholes. So and it's kind of a selfish notion almost. Like, I'm tired of all these fucking jerks and these assholes who are reeling from childhood programming, from that early stage developmental stuff that didn't get done right, or not that there's only one answer to it either, or one right way to do it. I mean, but like, I want to turn down the asshole factory. Your turn to talk, Dan.
Sure.
I'm going to sip a liquid.
Sure. I think that what you're describing is great. I don't know exactly what steps you would take through a global government to arrive at the point where, you know, children have more safe ability to grow up and mature through healthy paths. I think that the things that we know are things that should be explored. But I think at a certain point you end up down this line of thinking. It does get dangerous into like creating really tight regulations around reproduction, and that can shift to eugenics fairly easily. I know that's not what you're advocating for, but these things, they're real touchy in terms of how you would implement them and what is even good to implement. Like what would be helpful, what wouldn't. I don't know, but I think the broad goal of people growing up in more healthy, less traumatic, less stressed conditions, that's obviously something we all benefit from. We all would benefit from much more. I'm not sure what you would view as the specifics of like how we should get there.
Well, snacks, video games, and sleepovers mostly. No, I don't know. I don't know what the fucking but like that's like it's
wrestling,
pro wrestling. Too. Yeah, lots of shows. Like, no, I obviously mandating your child must have a safe, healthy, and this is exactly the formula. Like, no, that's clearly not at all what I mean. But like accommodating, I want people to belong to an in-group that is planet-wide and which accommodates their authenticity. I don't want people to have to conform to a narrow in-group, which is delineated by national boundaries or by, in America, of course, it gets much more precise than that. But like that's where basically I'm talking about horizontalizing or verticalizing power structures, right? I mean, that's essentially what we're talking about. And the childhood thing for me is more just like there's got to be a point where collectively humanity, it's sort of like the prime directive. Like, wait a minute, hold on. We're just fucking our kids up constantly. And each society has its own kind of way of doing this. Can we get some sort of collective agreement that they all deserve good food, safe, good education, experimental, like meaning like allowed to try new things, learn who they are, develop, fail safely, have, like, but there's all sorts of, obviously it's not as simple as just some guy like me insisting this is the case because I'm tired of living around assholes. But it just seems...
And a lot of people wouldn't come to any agreement about what those things you're wanting even mean. Like,
we don't even agree on
what does good,
charging
healthy food
kids
mean. Money
for food. We still sell children food at school, and if they don't have enough money, we don't give them. I was on I can't even think of it was a yellow card, school lunch assistance in 7th grade. And I was so ashamed of it. We had to keep it. They kept the card in this like big sleeve blanket, like, so you walk down, there's the cash register. Like, just having a cash register anywhere near school lunch is, to me, an abomination on its own. It's an atrocity. Yeah. Maybe that's a little too strong a word, but it's a sign of a very unwell society. But we were on the food assistance, and I had to, every kid that had to go get their card out of this little like blanket sleeve and then hand it over to them. And I felt so much shame about it. And it really caused, I just stopped eating. I just quit eating lunch. And this was after we had gotten kicked out of this other private school. It was this like messy thing. And we were like the scholarship kids at this private school. And then, and so this is like, I went to a middle school, middle of the year, had 0 friends, was still at least 30 years, more than 30 years away from learning I'm autistic. So I was like just in this overwhelming space, didn't know anybody, got bullied real hard, stopped eating. Those were uncomfortable. Those were sad days. But one component of it was I felt so much like shame about having to get my yellow card and give it to the lady. So I only had to pay a little bit or something, or I don't even remember, but I just stopped eating. I was so embarrassed. I stopped eating, which, I mean, maybe we could help kids without training them. Obviously, there was some conditioning that happened in my life, my family, my past, my culture that drove me to feel that way about it. But we impose all sorts of stuff on kids that we shouldn't do. But as you're saying, we still have people in this country who defend governments making sure that there's healthy food in their kids' schools, or even some food in their kids' schools that isn't coming at a cost. Oh, we can't pay for kids' food. What are you, a socialist?
Yeah, but you're talking on two different tracks here, though. Too, you're talking about the card and the stigma and the money aspect of it, and then what even is healthy food.
Yeah,
like those two things are completely separate conversations that I don't think anybody but there would be disagreement on both sides.
Agreed.
Like, kids aren't entitled to this food. What are you talking about? Or kids are entitled to that food.
Yeah.
Maybe this is healthy. Maybe GMO is not healthy. Maybe anything that's has pesticides and stuff used on it, maybe that's not healthy.
Yeah.
I think that finding common agreement of those terms is going to be like, I don't know if we'll ever get there. I hope we could.
No, I don't think we ever will. But like you can inform those sorts of things with science and with it's not unknowable that this level of offering. And then when you have children with different needs, that can also be accommodated. Just to wrap this up, and then we'll jump.
Half of the country is pissed off at vaccines.
I know, it's really
most
bad.
people there's a ton of people who don't believe in germ theory anymore. Like, it's crazy.
I'm talking about science fiction.
We're never gonna agree.
Feeding children is science fiction in this hellhole society that we're at. I'm not actually naive enough to think we're going to get there. It's similar to that whole what you started with your bright spot. The lady describing, "I would swear on my children." It's like appealing to that instinctive reaction. The same reason why The Mandalorian was such a runaway success, because everybody wants to save the baby, help the baby. Sure. The thing that got wrong with Yoda was they made him an old man. They should have just made him a toddler. He was behaving like one anyway. He was a wise toddler.
Yeah, he's a Benjamin Button toddler.
Yeah, rummaging around in some guy's pack, eating snacks, fucking around with a flashlight. That's classic toddler behavior.
Classic toddler.
But that appeal to the childhood thing is also something we see in our politics constantly. Of we don't want to, that's why they use the pedo accusation too. It's like it's a shortcut because it's so deeply ingrained. Even people like me, I don't want anything to do with people's kids. I'm not ever going to breed, to produce children. I don't want to be a father in any way other than to an adult son. Like, if you were Jordan, would like me to be my son, I would adopt both of you. But
I'll ask Jordan. I'm out.
Well, let him know. Let him know there's an opportunity. I'm not seeking this because of my interest in being a parent. It's more just like, as a human being, it's just like it's clearly we're hampering ourselves with the way we're treating our kids.
You're just tired of being around assholes, what you have,
and all the bullshit I had to put up with, and I don't think anybody else should have to either. And I don't think you can just. And then that was saying to wrap it up. I saw this the TikTok about school lunches in Japan. It was like 5-course meals. It was like fresh ingredients. They had multiple staff. They devoted resources to the preparation and to the sourcing. It was fresh stuff. All these like veggies and meats and they eat a lot of seafood over there, which is awesome. It made me want to enroll in one of those classes, do a Billy Madison in Japan. And it was amazing. And all these staff, and it was luxurious by our standards. And then there was another TikTok I caught. I had meant to save these to show on my podcast. It was a high school girl in America talking about how they didn't have any food at her school. Something went wrong with the delivery, but they did get a hold of potatoes. So they gave every kid a single potato. so
hey, it works.
On that continuum, it's not impossible to say, we just got to spend more money, put more resources towards this, change the economics of food production, food delivery, localize food growth more, obviously, too. I think industrial food production although I think something that lefties get wrong a lot too is our reliance on plastics and oils and mass production isn't going to be as easily solved as we think it can be. We can certainly drastically shift the way we divvy up the profits that motivate so much of it currently. I'm all for that too, but it's not as simple. But we still could do a tremendous amount differently in terms of just if we're just going to focus on the food stuff. It gets real dicey with like parenting style or in America though we have this antipathy towards teachers and education, which has been long been cooking, and is really reaching hopefully its nadir zenith. Is that the word? I'm trying to sound smart.
Well,
I hope it never gets worse.
High point or low point.
High point. I hope it never gets worse. The apogee. I hope it never gets worse than it is now, even though we know it's going to get worse over the next several years. Meaning, like, let's get better from here on out. Not,
right.
But like they're destroying education.
Of what we've done now.
Yeah,
are going to be playing out.
Yeah, homeschooling and all this other stuff, and so and they were the conservative impulse in America. Its original, America's just a mature Nazi society, mature colonialist institution built around fortress brain paranoia, but that deranged kind of staunch rejection of the government being involved in education in any sense was there from the beginning when they first established the Federal Department of Education. And then it gets informed, and we do probably need to talk about your subject, but
I'm just here. I'm enjoying listening to you.
I'm just doing my podcast at you is what's happening. But with the ferocious anti-trans, I don't even like calling it a conversation, but that is also relates back to children. Are children property, or are they humans who deserve rights? Right. That's another negotiation. And I don't necessarily believe children should have all the same rights at age 8 that they do at age 16 so much. That's the obligation adults have to former children ourselves to protect that phase of life in a way that is best for the person and for the collective. I don't think that's a crazy way to believe. All right, Dan, you talk for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I think that when I was saying like we're never going to agree on like what's healthy food and stuff, that's a proxy of like that much more complicated conversation that you're talking about, which is like parenting styles. To what extent does your child have autonomy? Because we know that it's a great deal, but it's also not absolute until they are mature enough and grow up to not need your protection from all kinds of things that adults are able to protect themselves from. So like, I don't think that we're ever going to get to a point where there's a consensus on that. And I think that to the extent that we can move forward, it comes from finding ways that are in between those intractable disagreements, finding the places where you can push and make things better in between those. I think. I don't know. I haven't really fully thought this through, outside of just being bummed out that no one's ever going to agree on sort of baseline things.
Agreed. Yeah. But like an informed, educated, well-rested democracy would trend towards the positive. There's the reason they fight democracy especially in workplaces, but also like throughout. Like we live this fantasy that it's the best way to run a society, but you need education. You need time to inform your curiosity. You need people to be informed. And an ignorant, highly malleable, media illiterate democracy like we have, very flawed as it is. Like, democracy is not a toggle switch. There's a continuum there, and they're super resistant to democracy in the workplace, as we experienced at the Young Turks, where they busted the union. I had to start to try to get healthcare for working full-time labor. I'm saying that stuff because I know you know, but I want, if any of your audience is here now, check out the documentary, guys. It's in the description.
Tell the truth, Hank. Cenk. Your
Hank
names are too close.
The truth from Hank to Cenk. Yeah, Cenk Uygur lied to his audience about why we unionize, so I'm making a documentary called "Tell the Truth, Cenk." So please watch it. It's look in the description. Need a lot of help, by the way. Man, promoting a documentary when you don't have any promotion skills and you're just fucking psycho, it's really hard. It's super difficult.
It is tough. Promoting when you don't know how to promote is a
I'm
real
as
mess.
I'm as good at editing as I'm bad at promotion. Anyways, but like the whole, actually sort of the thesis of this film that I'm sort of coming through is not just the detailing the union busting and the union organizing and why we unionize, but I want it to be, it's not just about like calling out TYT. I want it to be educational about every issues every single person faces, which is how much bullshit should you have to put up with in your life? What should you be forced to consent to? In other words, you don't get to consent if you're forced. And so the leverage ratio in society is mediated through the stress. That's kind of where the childhood thing comes from. Kids with healthy childhoods become healthy adults who develop into who will nurture communities more, and community is what makes people strong. The human superpower is cooperation and collective action. That's why we have this incredible thing that we do where we fill our backgrounds with all kinds of ugly stuff and the gym crack, as you might call it. Yours is so much nicely organized, by the way, Dan. Look at that. Although you do have a severed hand, I see behind you, which is haunting.
Yeah. Back in like when I first started the podcast, somebody reached out and said that they wanted to support us, but they didn't have any money and didn't have any way to promote anything. But they worked at a prosthetic factory, and they would send a hand and a foot. So I have a hand and a foot.
Yeah, okay, there's a foot.
From like 8 years ago.
Lovely, yeah. Like
Yeah.
the irregular one, like where the irregular jeans store where that's the ones with the seam. But although those aren't actually, but anyway,
They don't have nails, so they look really freaky.
That is goofy.
They,
yeah.
My old roommate would scream at me when I would show him the hand because it has no nails.
Yeah.
He would just like curl up into a ball of terror.
That's a rough way to wake up. Your roommate
Yeah.
holding a nailless hand in front of your face. Well,
Look at this.
oh,
Look at
you're awake
this.
now. It took 20 minutes this time. Anyway, so but the thesis of the film is basically that solidarity is the one thing the bosses fear most because it's more powerful than they are. And therefore they've designed a society around preventing solidarity. Right? Like essentially think like all the isms, racism, sexism, that's sort of the very generic top line of it. But like all the stuff that we're conditioned to be fearful and suspicious and preventing community formation, preventing social bonds, saddling you with childhood stresses and traumas that you have to spend your whole adult life or part of your adult life, fixing or coping with poorly. All that serves the masters because it keeps the stress levels high. And stress, so I think the hoards the billionaires have accrued are just piles of people's stress, essentially. Stress is transmogrified into money because stress is how they keep the leverage ratio down, and leverage is how they compel obedience. And therefore they design society to be anti-solidarity, except when it does crop up, because humans are naturally sort of group formers. Like at TUAT, we had to secretly unionize to deal with some shit that needed to be fixed. That's a union. And so it's like solidarity busting is the baseline, and then union busting is what happens when solidarity busting fails. How'd that sound to you? Was that did that work? Did that work for you?
Yeah, it sounds fine. Yeah. I guess I agree.
Good. Nice. I know you're a tough audience though. Dan has, I don't know if everybody knows. So Dan and I are friends from the Chicago comedy scene, and boy, toughest agreement in the business, as we would say.
Yeah.
I never
Well,
would say that.
that's something that I've worked on in therapy. I've tried to work on back in those days in particular, it was very unchecked, and I didn't realize
I was
how
kinda
much
kidding
of
around.
like my negative responses were just automatic. And I didn't realize how much, like, when anybody said anything, I was like, no, but, and then try and like, I wasn't trying to like completely negate whatever they were saying. I was trying to explore the idea more and try to like find like points of agreement through disagreeing and getting rid of parts that I didn't agree with. And I didn't realize how people heard that. And I've really tried to make an active effort to change the way I interact, because I think between us and like maybe some other comic friends, that wasn't like a horribly unappealing way to communicate.
Right.
But with like other people in normal life, I didn't realize how much of like a bummer that was, and how shutting off I was from everybody else because of this way that I responded to things. Like we could treat it as a way of like workshopping an idea or something, but
Yeah.
other people who didn't have that same kind of brain or habits, it was just like, Dan is a fucking mess.
Well,
He doesn't agree with anything. He's just a naysayer. Everything is negative. And that's not what I meant to express to them, but that's
Sure.
definitely what was heard.
well, I was kind of kidding around. I always found you kind of cordial and nice, even though you drop lyrics that I wouldn't recognize because I don't have that any library at all for song lyrics or album
A
notes
lot of
or
Master
something.
P stuff.
Yeah, Dan drops a Master P in the thing. I'm like, I've heard that. I think as a poet, but okay. So
Yes.
you've recognized this tendency but you know, social boundaries. Sometimes there's certain brain styles. I'm nudging that
Sure.
have difficulty recognizing social boundaries, and that can cause dysregulation, social frictions that might have consequences. Although if you're constituently incapable of seeing those, you might not notice the consequences as well. Therefore, they sustain. So like, and then maybe you end up in therapy, but you also might have good pattern detection and maybe a special interest or something like that. Or maybe there's a certain type of model for understanding nervous systems that occur to people that is not caused by vaccines, by the way.
Are you sure?
Very sure.
Because a lot of people think so.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I'm talking about autism. I'm not suggesting that, well, I am suggesting you might be, but I'm not saying I think you are. Although
Cool, man.
the people I have been friends with in my life, I look back and I go, probably. It's because, you know, sign number one was they could tolerate me.
Sure. There's a possibility of you know, some sort of traits
Yeah.
all around. I want to sidestep this by asking you,
Okay.
if you've seen this season of Survivor.
No.
There is a contestant who has autism, and I
Mhm.
think you would find it very interesting.
Okay.
I would be interested in your take on it because
Can I watch it online?
Yeah, it's on Paramount Plus.
That's the only one I pay for because it has Star Trek.
Oh, there you go.
That's the most autistic
yeah,
thing you
this
could say.
season 48.
Okay.
I think it would be particularly interesting to you because of this this contestant and how her
I took apart my
neurodivergence affects the game and how it
Yeah.
affects everybody around. I'd
Great.
be interested in your take.
All right, I'll do that. Maybe we'll record the take for content. Episode or Survivor 48 I just wrote. The final thing I'll say, and then I do want to ask you about some Alex Jones stuff, is my plea, and I said this in a previous video here about autism where I reacted to RFK Jr. Well, first of all, let me see here already. One reason we know vaccines don't cause autism is because autistic people have looked into it. A bunch of smart, not that this is the only autistic profile, but a bunch of hyper obsessive, super detail oriented, motivated, you know, that can't turn off the certain parts of themselves, scientist brain type people. A lot of people have lived their entire lives not realizing they might fall on the autism spectrum somewhere. Have looked into it. Like if autistic people and also people who have the disabling honesty, the kind of honesty that fucks up, that causes problems in their lives. If there was any reason to think it might even be possible that vaccines had something to do with autism, autistic people would be fucking telling you that. There's no reason to hide that information, but it serves this narrative of co-opting autistic profiles, condition, disorder, if you want to call it that, and then turning that into a useful cudgel for demonizing vaccines overall, which is then only going to get even more people hurt. It's really, really ugly shit. But my plea is to say that anybody who thinks they understand autism well is fine. I think I do, although I still try to not assign any assumptions to anybody, but is to take your confidence and turn it into curiosity I fucked up. If you're feeling discomfort about it or about someone's disability in any way, take your discomfort and turn that into curiosity. Don't turn your discomfort into confidence. In other words, don't let it harden you. Let it soften and open up your knowledge. It's an opportunity to understand your discomfort. Curious about why is this person making me uncomfortable, or what is it about the world that I am like this? Not, we've got to stop that. We've got to do something about that, or to affirm some sort of bias in you. Although the people watching you and me talking right now probably don't need to be told this shit anyway. So
No, probably not, but it's still a valuable perspective. And I think that it's also like it applies broadly even beyond, neurodivergence and autism. It applies all over the place. Like what it, instead of responding to something with a fuck you, understanding and trying to learn more generally will lead you towards that solidarity and that community that, you're looking for, and makes things better.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. All right. So a lot of what we're talking about does connect to Alex Jones. We started talking at the beginning, this Kelly Rushing thing I thought was just really great, though. Obviously, you did a lot of work on it. And the story of this guy who put two videotapes, VHS tapes, we're guessing, into a police officer's mailbox in Kentucky somewhere, correct?
Yeah, one over the two incidents, not just two tapes at one time.
Oh, okay.
One tape, and then 2 weeks later, he did it again. He was not like warned or reprimanded in the meantime because the cop didn't see who specifically had put the tape in his mailbox the first time.
I see.
But I think there is a slight difference just from the story if it's 2 times that he did it as opposed to 2 tapes one time. You know what I mean?
There was a little, and yes, and the way you presented the story was great because you kind of like show this evolution of how so he calls Alex Jones to talk about it. He gets arrested. So the cop saw the second time. Is that why he knew which car he chased him down? That's how he got pulled over when he got pulled over. They didn't like track him down some other way.
He didn't get chased down, but the cop recognized his car and waited for him where he knew, like it's a very small town, and he waited for him where he knew he was going to be, or coming back down the US 641, I think was the highway.
I'm going to fact check
And so
that.
he waited for him there and arrested him.
Okay, interesting. I didn't realize that. All right, so I was a little bit curious about that detail as far as like the linkage from the cop then getting to him. I didn't know if he like chased him down like that day so he spotted the car and then set a trap later to spot the car again.
Yeah, I think the same day though.
Same day. Okay, cool. Good. So this guy gets arrested and charged with a bunch of stuff, and then he calls into Alex Jones and tells the story, and then Alex Jones just completely like realizes an opportunity that it would inform his project and he could benefit from it, and he immediately starts changing details, and it's a really great way that you present that whole thing. And like the menacing part of it isn't so much like you just said. It's not just 2 tapes at once. It was twice. Is that he knows where you live? That's the threatening part of you messing with someone's mailbox. Is obviously we don't like that. And you and Jordan had a little bit of a not tension, but a slight disagreement as far as what we should feel about those things at the beginning of that episode.
Yeah, we didn't fully see eye to eye on. And I think that it's a valid disagreement that people can have.
Yeah.
Of like whether or not the police guy having something happen at his personal home should be able to use his position as a police person to respond to that. I think that does get to a crux of like, I think people have philosophical differences between them. I err more on the side of I can understand why this guy thought this was a huge threat, and like I don't think he didn't overreact. Like I think there is an overreaction that the cops had, but I also think that to not react or to expect a non-reaction is also kind of like I don't know how we can all live feeling safe if you're just expecting a non-reaction for something like that.
Yeah. Right. The idea that someone puts something in your mailbox and they're not a post office person, that is not okay. We all kind of recognize the sanctity of, the post office is its own sort of, I think, cherished and hallowed institution, especially the American post office. And unfortunately, of course, they're trying to destroy that too. But it's a part of our collective body in a way. Like it's a very intimate place that should not be violated by anybody who's not authorized to. So there's an inherent threat there. I could
There's
obviously
a lot of dangerous things people could put in your mailbox.
Yeah.
you know, if we didn't have a pretty strict rule about that.
Right.
Now,
but then a cop
that
takes
said-
that, and then there's an authority the cop has that others don't have, and that you could certainly take issue with his response, but also of him feeling something odd about this is also totally understandable. Finish your thought. Sorry.
Yeah, like the actual underlying case of what happened is I think really interesting, because I think some folks who are more to the left, more to the right, have ideas about police, have less ideas about police. I think that the story and the actual details of it allow you to explore some things that people who disagree on a lot of stuff maybe could agree on, or the stakes are low enough that it allows for that exploration, I think, across aisles. But yeah, it got blown up. The case, Alex definitely blew it up way out of proportion once this guy called into his show.
Right.
And that's part of the thing that I found the most interesting. Like, the case itself is interesting, but the abuse of it and the mishandling of it, I think is far more like this tells us about how information is weaponized and how people fall for this stuff much more.
So yes, that's something I wanted to ask you to talk about more. You kind of beat me to it already a little bit, but there's a couple of the beats of the case though. Is that like Alex gets involved and immediately starts changing details. So the judge said you're guilty, and he makes up all this stuff that's not true. You've witnessed that. You've documented that for years. That's nothing new necessarily. Not saying it should be new or not new, but that immediately becomes, though, it activates Alex's user base, though. And this becomes part of the whole story where the cop had to move. People were now harassing, and things were being sent to the courthouse, right? Or to the cop, or
but like police station.
How often are you, and this is sort of a much smaller version of what happened with the Sandy Hook story. Is that correct? In terms of the user base becoming, offering up their sort of willingness to, what do they do? How does he inspire that loyalty, or like how does that mechanism go from I'm a fan of this radio show to I've got to go send stuff through the mail or show up somewhere and be a troll or whatever, however you might describe that behavior? That's such a power, though. That's a scary power for a person to have, and it's irresponsibly used. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, like, you hear that thing with Trump that he says and is mirrored all the time by, surrogates of his that are like, the man isn't trying to stop Trump. He's trying to get to you, and Trump is in the way. Like, Trump is the one who's standing in between you and the devil, basically. And Alex has the same he's used that same rhetorical kind of trick for a long time of like, the globalists want to enslave you. I am the thing that stands in between their ability to do that. And obviously with the harassment and all that stuff that happened around Sandy Hook it's it is more complicated, and it's a lot worse and more disgusting. But the 2004 is when this Kelly Rushing situation happened, and it was I think it was perfect for people to project themselves onto, as the ethics of Alex's show, the InfoWar itself, involves you as an active participant, the listener, making copies of his videos and tapes and giving them to people to, term didn't exist, but red pill people back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so Kelly served as an almost perfect surrogate for the audience. He was the person who was doing exactly what the InfoWar would have you do, which is go give out Alex's tapes. A lot of people in the audience gave out Alex's tapes. They could relate to this.
What were the tapes, real quick?
So one of them was Alex's DVD 9/11 Road to Tyranny, which is a documentary that he made. And there's the other tape, I think, as I understand it, was like a compilation that Kelly Rushing's brother had made, which involved Ron Paul's speech, some other clips from various things that were about the New World Order, and probably some clips of Alex. So, but that's like right in the wheelhouse of the things that Alex would have you distribute if you're a listener when you're trying to turn people on to this fight against the globalists. And so everyone could see themselves in this victim.
Yeah.
He was getting the treatment that they imagined would happen to them for speaking the truth. And so Alex, his distortions and the way that he presented the story leaned into a sense of the stuff that's on that tape, 9/11 Road to Tyranny, the stuff about the police state, that's exactly what's happening to you, because it affirms the paranoia of the people who are listening, who see themselves in Kelly and see the warning of these tapes as being fulfilled, of coming true. And it just energizes things tremendously. Like it's almost a perfect storm.
Yeah, I didn't quite make that connection right. So that vicarious kind of surrogacy of, look, he's doing what you all are doing also, at least the whatever the distribution of his audience is, there's that high involvement side of that distribution that are then going to see that reactionary and that victimization narrative that's kind of baked into the conservative sort of project. Then yeah, interesting. Wow. And so there
feel like the threat upon this person is a threat upon themselves.
Right.
Like it's very easy to bridge that gap at that point.
Do they see it as I mean, obviously it's probably both, but is it a threat to themselves, but also a chance to rally to the fight down at, you know what I mean? Like to show up for someone else is both. They're defending that person, but also therefore defending themselves and the movement that they.
Yeah. And I think like a Bundy Ranch kind of thing is, a great example of how that, piece of the motivation exists. People rallying around, showing up at the Bundy Ranch, and
yeah,
they
still got
creating
mail.
a focal point out of it.
Speaking of, yeah, they still had their mail delivered or something during that time, if I'm recalling correctly, during the siege.
Hey, the post office is important.
Neither snow nor sleet nor rain nor siege. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So the story then goes forward with Alex completely in giving the guy legal advice, and so as the months go by, it's kind of petering out. Like the prosecutors reduce the charges or they take away some of them, and it ends.
The case, to be clear, just I'm sorry, because you
No,
said the months
please.
go by. Just to clarify, his involvement with Alex is pretty short-lived.
Right.
The arrest itself takes place in December 2003. He calls into Alex's show for the first time February 2004, and then his case is April 2004. Between the first call and his case, the charges that he has of menacing are dropped, and so the only charge that's left is terroristic threatening, and that he is acquitted of in April. So the actual time frame here is only about 2 months that him and Alex are playing games actively, where Alex is telling him, you should fire your attorney. They're going to try and get you on drugs. If you say the word gun and lock you up somewhere, no one will ever see you again. Like this kind of stuff. That's a pretty brief window.
Okay. Fair. No, good. Nevertheless, as Alex keeps returning to the story as things go on, and you end the episode, meaning like a year later, he talks about it, he brings it up again, and I was just commending your production because you kind of say it at the end is like you've been tracking this kind of for a while. So when did you first start collating? Is that right? When did you first start gathering up audio that you used for this episode? I just thought you did a great job with the whole episode. I was like, I think it's an important episode that stands out.
Well, thank you. Like I have an archive of all of his old episodes that I downloaded years ago because I figured, I mean, honestly, as somebody who's observed this space and him particularly, there have been a number of times where I've been like, well, these are all going to be off the internet soon. Like his sites and where he has RSS feeds and stuff like that. I was just sure like this is going to go away. And over the years, I've done dips into the past to try and find things that are interesting to cover. And then whenever we go and do live shows, I always dig in the past and try and find something. And so I'm not sure exactly when it was, but a couple of years ago, probably, I was listening to 2004 episodes, and I became interested in the way Alex was handling this because I'd heard that story in the present. I'd heard him talk about this. And so I knew, like, when I heard the call, as I was just listening to this February 2004 episode, I was like, that's the guy.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I found
I
chapter
know this
1.
story.
Yeah, I found the first
Yeah.
part. Yeah.
And
Interesting.
so I was very fascinated by that, and I made some notes of like when he would come back up, and I just kind of, I don't know, it's weird. I was sitting on it. I knew that eventually I was gonna cover it, but I was like, I didn't know when or why. And it just kind of felt like there's a point that's illustrated by how severely Alex reacts about the supposed encroachment of Kelly Rushing's rights, and how that compares to the lackadaisical approach he has towards people's rights now.
Right.
That I thought I'll break these notes out, and dip back to that. But yeah, I don't know. I hesitate to call it a great production effort, but I appreciate it. That's nice.
The fact that you had the process started a couple. I mean, I have a similar. My TYT project is like years long in the works, so I have all kinds of notes that aren't all that well organized. I mean, there are parts of it that I like piecing stuff together that I gather up over multiple long time frame. So like, I'm just commending your organization and the fact that you pulled that out, and yeah, no doubt. But at the end, you kind of say that the reason you did this story now, the reason you put it together, was because its relevancy to, gave you a chance to comment on where we are currently with the way Alex is treating the power structure that we find ourselves mired under. Those are my words, not yours. And so I was curious, though, what did you mean by that? Basically just continue the thought that you were just starting down, as far as like, or just my own, like the way that this whole thing centers around paranoia about police, Kelly's story, meaning like they're trying to give out tapes to VHS pill people before they became called red pill. The cops were the bad guys. The government was the bad, like the deep state, but yet these days, and probably before Trump second term, at least, I'm guessing, they seem to be pretty comfortable with state violence and with imposing police on others and using the arm of the state, so, I mean, yeah. Alex, I want to hear you talk, not my bullshit.
Well, this is the point that I hope to illuminate, and there's something that I think that people have a difficult time understanding, is that like when Alex was like early on, like this VHS pill days, this was a principle. This wasn't about like, I don't like George Bush and I don't like what he's doing. I don't like Obama and I don't like what he's doing. It's about a principle of like, the police don't have the right to treat people like this. And it's fake. That was fake.
Yeah.
He faked that because it's a good position to have. It's an appealing, attractive position to have. There is no real opposition to state violence. There's no real opposition to the police arresting people for no reason and even disappearing them. There's no problem with that. It's just that Alex doesn't want that targeted at white Christians. Like, that's it.
Or more precisely, wants it targeted at non-white Christians.
He would like it. Yeah. I think
if they step out of line, or to uphold the line. Yeah.
Yes. If people who don't fit into those categories are happy to live with white male Christians having all the rights and all the control in America, I think he would turn a blind eye to them being here.
Right.
But, in terms of LGBTQ existence in public, like, that's not cool. The police should be able to stop that. He these are violations of the idea that what he was working off of was a principle. It was not. It was a preference. He had a preference for that being where state violence was directed. And in order to make that a more appealing argument to people who weren't on his side already, you pretend it's a principle. And I don't know everybody who I would describe that way in the media space today. But I think that people should be mindful of that. That a lot of times there are principles that are masks for, something shitty.
For preference. I love that
Yeah.
preference versus principle. I wrote that down. That's how important that was. That's a great, simple, kind of interesting construct there.
Yeah, because I think it's easier to argue with somebody that is obviously right and you disagree with when you make it about some kind of abstract principle. It's much harder to say, how are you going to win an argument against, I don't know, interracial marriage just by saying, I don't like that?
Right.
You're never going to. But
Right.
if you try and fancy it up in some kind of a principled idea, you may be able to trick some people into agreeing with you when they wouldn't otherwise. And yeah, I think it's an important piece of media literacy.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. The concept of projection, where it's like the fear of the deep states and the global order or whatever so the people that are alarmed were kind of back in the Bush Obama era, and that whole notion of I'm the guy who's commanding and reporting this info war. I'm the general of the war. I don't know if he calls himself that, but I'm saying I'm between you and what's coming for you. So he's validating that persecution complex. But actually, what they're projecting is they're upholding the hierarchy by insisting, although they do it through this fake principle, that they want to actually impose the power that they're afraid of. So they're co-opting it and then converting it into what they want to do, projecting. Right. As we see so much in this kind of conversation and this discourse from the right, especially, but also I think it's not just unique to them. So where does Alex then come? How does he reconcile that past sort of thing? And I'm not sure I've accurately described it. Feel free to fill in some gaps if you'd like, to where we are now, where we have masked government goons kidnapping people without identifying themselves and taking them away for writing articles in their school newspaper against genocide. Where does that all? How does he reconcile that, or at least maybe how do you perceive all that? I'll just let you talk. I don't know why I'm asking.
I think you don't have to. I think that that's the joke for him and his audience is you don't have to. If he had to, he would have lost literally all of his viewers by now. I remember when the conversation about Bukele setting up detention centers in El Salvador, and Trump talking about sending, U.S. residents or, people who are immigrated here to that prison, Alex literally described it as a prison planet that he was in favor of creating in El Salvador. And his show is called, or one of his websites was Prison Planet.
Right.
It was a term that he popularized. It was Paul Joseph Watson's handle on Twitter. This is a fundamental betrayal of something that he seemed to care about. And I think that's when you're asking how does he justify it or rationalize it, I don't think he does.
Yeah.
I don't think he has to.
That's kind of the point.
It is, it's Trump is going to be king. I might not use that term, but that's everyone's essentially on board. And I don't know how much of the audience is aware of that the principle or the pretend of having principle is just gone. That doesn't exist here anymore. And it's now just kind of a religiously fueled zealotry that has replaced it. Alex thinks that he speaks to God on a regular basis, and that God has chosen him to like fight the devil. And so that verve and that vigor, like there's no place for relying on principles anymore. Like obviously you're gonna have to break some eggs if you want to fight the devil. He's the devil. You gotta fight him. Even if you gotta fight dirty if you're fighting the devil.
Yeah, gotta give up some eggs. Yeah. I see what you're. Yeah, so I think that's kind of one of the things that like you and I and probably your audience, and I'd like to think my audience all both very nice. We should have a play date with yours and mine. I don't know what I want to do. But like the sort of thoughtful examination of this kind of thing, we're falling into the trap of trying to negotiate our understanding of how this sort of stuff works with principles and with I don't think hypocrisy is always the worst thing. I think generally, meaning like it's inherently part of this process in some ways. There's benign hypocrisies, I guess is a better way of saying that. But they don't even think about this sort of stuff. They just think about I think they're just raw power. I think to them it's just the fact that you have to follow different rules than we do, including caring about hypocrisy, is part of the point of it all, even though they would never really necessarily raise that consciousness level of it. I mean, that's one of the tenets of like fascism, or not that it's strictly defined. There's another conversation happening on the internet of how do you define fascism, but power certainly seems to be very much about different rules for different groups, different levels of accountability for depending on what class you fall into. Where on the hierarchy
I demand you follow rules that I know are, I'm joking, I don't really give a fuck about this. That's kind of when you peel the mask back, that's a large part of what you see. And that's it's a big reason why I don't think hypocrisy matters. Like I think it does in terms of like just being intellectually honest when you're viewing this kind of media, but like I think anybody who thinks like, we've uncovered a hypocrisy, this will make a difference, I think that's misguided. I think it's like a blank. It's like firing a blank. They don't care.
I think it's worse. I think it's more counterproductive to care, meaning like they know you care. So like liberals will spin themselves in circles about Trump's hypocrisies when it's actually you're just falling under a spell. It's like you've just been mesmerized by a wizard spell, and it just has you like wasting energy, wasting time. And meanwhile, you're not actually advancing anything because it truly doesn't really matter, particularly in the media environment we have with everybody's goldfish brains and their phone-addled brains and the media.
You should care. Yeah. You should care, but you shouldn't think that it's like, this is a strategy. This is going to make a difference.
Right. And it should be noted.
If you just say you don't care, I think you erode what you allow yourself to accept. And I think that can be dangerous in and of itself.
Like in the Young Turks case is a massive hypocrisy. The Cenk Uygur, this guy who spent his whole brand building, talking about defending workers, or people should stand up to power and speak truth to power. And that's one of the things that motivated me to move across the country in 2013 to work for the Young Turks when I had that opportunity. One of my greatest regrets in life. I really wish I'd stayed in Chicago. I would have been featuring at the Laugh Factory by 2020. Things were starting to really kick up. I would have maybe done a Rosemont on Thursday night. Rosemont Zany.
You would have been featuring at the Laugh Factory at the height of COVID. It would have been great.
I might have done. Yeah. I would have gotten COVID at the Laugh Factory in Chicago. Not at I did get. Yeah, I think. Anyway. But the hypocrisy of Cenk Uygur is paramount. It's like definitional. It's like he set himself as a standard bearer for principles. That's kind of partly the film I'm making, Tell the Truth, Cenk, is about a violation of his honesty principle, which he clearly doesn't believe in, because otherwise he would tell the truth about why we unionized. It's just nuts that the TYT's official story is still that the union started at the Young Turks as a dirty trick by Washington elites to harm his run for Congress. That's not that they would phrase it that way, but they have not retracted or corrected anything with it. The hypocrisy of his labor advocacy compared to the way he treated workers, the reasons why we unionized. I was classified part-time while I worked 40-hour weeks. So I unionized my workplace. There was also other stuff that happened before I got involved with the union effort. I was part of the second unionizing effort. There's two big ones there. And if you know any journalists, by the way, Dan, can you please hook me up with laborers or somebody? Come on, make it happen, will you, buddy? Jesus Christ, will somebody step in for me? Whatever I'm doing is not
any
working.
Connections.
I know.
People don't like me. I'm a grump.
But that level of hypocrisy is very noteworthy. It's not the same as the sort of like ongoing political churn of hypocritical Republicans or hypocritical Democrats and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it is so profoundly hypocritical for Cenk Uygur to bust a union. The funny thing to me that I still shake my head at, that I wish more people would kind of get their heads around, is like, he did it while running for Congress. He was a candidate for Congress, making ads talking about how he looks out for the average guy in the working class while he's union busting, so he's motivated to lie for all kinds of reasons to justify the union busting and to prevent his audience from actually learning that he treats his workers like shit. You can't, like, I worked full time for zero benefits, and, it's also just funny. Sorry, I know I have to finish this, but like, it's just funny to like hire to start a company that's going to attract lefties who believe in this stuff, who are more likely to unionize than others. Than like as I keep saying, like, if you don't want a union, be the Daily Wire. Those stupid morons in the control room or in the editing booth. Not that, I don't know, maybe they have booths. We didn't have booths at TYT, but they're not going to unionize. They'll talk you out of unionizing if you do it. But at a place like the Young Turks, you're going to get someone like me and others who are just like, yeah, we should fucking unionize. This is bullshit. And then you get some real crazy person like me who wants to spend all this time making a goddamn documentary about it and torturing himself.
Yeah, that is the danger, isn't it?
Oops. Yeah.
That's the, I think that on some level, is the same principle thing. It clearly was not a principle. Right. It was being preached as a principle, but it wasn't. And I don't want to say that Cenk is like the same as Alex, because that's obviously not true. But in that sense, there is that little bit of an overlap of people are attracted to and drawn to the principle that is being espoused and it's being presented, but the principle itself clearly is not what is guiding this. There is a preference, and maybe I don't know enough. I don't know as much about the TYT as you, but right. I would assume maybe it's money.
I think
of money.
I think you could, if we're to be generous, you could explain it as it's like a salesman who really believes the product, but it's only ever hypothetical. This is some of the class war sort of like markers of the whole project. Is like, Cenk grew up rich. He was an immigrant though, so he had experience as an outsider, but he still came from a wealthy family. His dad was a big property owner. Went to Wharton Business School, same school as Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Went to Columbia Law School, worked for corporate law, some kind of corporate job, making a lot of money for a brief stint. He was called to do media at around in his late 20s or so, probably earlier, because he was writing columns. Actually, some overlaps with the Ben Shapiro sort of upbringing. Like, he was like writing. You can still find Cenk's columns from his college days. Like, he was like shitting on Anita Hill. Going after her and like, because he was a staunch conservative. He actually, one of his stories is attending an Elian Gonzalez, if you remember, the young kid from Cuba who was in America, but like Janet Reno was Bill Clinton's attorney general, and they were insisting on returning him to where he was from. They had made a decision. And so like armed gunmen went in. It was this big drama. And so all these protests, it activated a lot of Sturm and Drang. Cenk went to one of those protests to advocate on the right-wing position of it, and kind of got his ass beat. Like, he had to get like hustled out of there by cops to be protected. So that's one of the stories he talks about. And then he had his like kind of conservative switch when the Bush administration came online and started doing all this crazy stuff with Iraq and with 9/11. And so like for him, expressing this progressivism of he would describe himself as a liberal Republican. I've heard him talk about that, and then just basically switch that definition to progressive, because it's really not that difficult to brand yourself an outsider of a sort if you're cool with gay people and you're cool with higher taxes and you are against the Iraq War, right? That's essentially what a liberal Republican would have been. And so the branding, though, then evolved into, and they did a lot of culture stuff. This is where, like in the film, we get into the Bernie Sanders endorsement of Cenk during his run. So it's like this movie's about like a political thriller kind of documentaries too. I don't know how to sell it, but it hits on so many different weird
angles. If it were a political thriller, that'd be how you sell it.
Maybe I should switch to that.
There's no like death. There's no like murder.
Oh, is that
thriller's got to have a good death in it? I think, right?
Or at least not necessarily. I guess so. I suppose if the word thriller, I guess the music video Thriller is literally about zombies doing line dancing, right?
Mm-hmm. Throw that in the film.
Yeah, let me work that in. That's some good.
Yeah.
Oh no, the movie Thriller. Like, why did what? This is not the movie I wanted this guy to make.
You're out in LA. You can find some actors. To be
you're
zombies.
saying film it in?
Yes. Give yourself a hook here.
Yeah, but and in other words, like I think like the similar kind of. I think Cenk has some similarities to Alex, in terms of straw manning opposing opposition. Like I recently learned what the phrase steel manning is, which is the opposite of straw manning. And like I see that a lot in terms of what's happening lately within the right wing pivot TYT is sort of doing, where they're making the strategic. He's redefined himself as a populist now, and his mission is to unite the right populism with the left populism, and then therefore they're fighting the establishment populism and the radicals on both sides. So he's the middle group, the reasonable group. He calls himself an economic populist. He's enlisted. He's doing this thing called Rebellion PAC. I'm just going to download Dan here on some of those stuff here.
Okay.
Rebellion PAC is a super PAC that Cenk started. Originally it was named Cenk for Congress. They changed the name after he lost his congressional bid, which is documented in the film.
Smart. And you don't want to keep that name after the fact.
Yeah, 5 years later, Cenk for Congress. But he also co-opts the language of rebellion all the time. They have Rebel HQ, and in a kind of an importance.
Isn't that already taken by those Canadian right-wing folks?
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, one of the TYT's channels is Rebel News is different. Rebel HQ
I know, but that
is
name's
the channel.
Already.
Yeah, well, it's also taken by George Lucas
confusing.
and Mark Hamill,
sure.
So it's a word. But like he has, like they were making a film about his about his campaign called Road to Revolution. So he likes to brand himself as this outsider person, and you could argue, and I kind of want to do something about this in the film, that like the way the Democratic Party, one of the things they're actually good at is keeping progressive outsiders from gaining any traction in the party. Only when they can't really fight it, like with AOC, she just caught him off guard basically. But there's all sorts of examples, and Cenk would fit into that, even though he has some other unique characteristics because of his profile. So, like, in a sense, he is an outsider, but they use the legal infrastructure of capitalist oppression, phrasing from the film, where they hire these union-busting law firms, one of which represents the AMPTP, the Academy Motion Picture Theatrical something production. Like, they're the assholes who fight the Hollywood unions, the SAG-AFTRA, IATSE, Writers Guild. So, like, Cenk TYT is run by a former health insurance executive from big corporations, Kaiser Permanente or Blue Shield, whatever. So I have his LinkedIn profile. So they're insiders, but they position themselves within this political environment as outsiders. And he strawmans this argument. He strawmans others, like the argument he's always having with online lefties and online, he calls them radicals these days. In a way that I think is kind of similar to Alex Jones, at least, and because it shows a lack of good faith, or say the presence of bad faith. But Rebellion PAC, sorry, I'm flaring off here, is run by Brianna Wu, who is the executive director. She's an online character you might have heard of or seen.
I've heard her name.
First came to some prominence, I think, within the Gamergate world. And very outspoken in favor of Israel right now, and is very busy online. She's trans, but has goes against the overwhelming kind of side of where lefties look at that and but Brianna Wu is very I guess controversial, but invites a lot of consternation and is controversial in the way she supports the genocide of in Palestine and stuff and all that shit. Not very rebellious, not exactly upholding. So he's relaunched Rebellion PAC to try to replicate something. Not replicate, that's not fair, but as sort of a Justice Democrats. If you recall, AOC, Cory Bush, a few others. I can't think of all their names right now. They did make some headway into this. What do you call coalition in Congress?
Yeah,
Caucus.
like
Caucus.
Caucus. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Justice Democrat Caucus, not enough to swing things very much, but enough to show some proof of concept, I would say. Didn't really, translate to the world we want to see, obviously. But that's not necessarily Cenk's fault. He got booted out of that for his past sexism, which is kind of funny. That's the same reason why Sanders endorsed him in 24 hours and then unendorsed him within 24. That's in the movie too, because that sexism stuff was just like all the ghosts were just crawling out of the woodwork. It was really funny and kind of wacky. I wish you were held to account more for the union busting than the sexism, but it's fine. It's not a competition. But he's relaunched Rebellion PAC to try to do a populist takeover of the Democratic Party, and he's enlisted Ro Khanna, congressman from Silicon Valley, who I have some issues with. I think there's obviously far worse in our government currently, but he's invested in Palantir, which is sort of a ugly thing to have tried to be making money off of. And then he's also enlisted Richard Ojeda, who ran for Congress at least once, maybe more than that. He's also ran for president very briefly. He's sort of a firebrand drill.
So did Cenk.
Yeah, he ran for president to try to get Joe Biden out. And
Briefly.
yeah, I have a thing to say about that in a second. But Richard Ojeda is a huge union guy, and I wonder if he knows that he's working with a union buster. I'd be curious to find out what he does. Live streams and stuff too, so I'm kind of interested in getting his attention or somehow letting him know. And then Randy Bryce, who, if you might remember, Iron Stash, if that rings any bells.
Yeah.
He's run for Congress a few times. He, I think, ran against Paul Ryan, so he's from Wisconsin, and he's a big union guy as well. So he was just added to the Rebellion PAC roster. So Cenk is making this play. Brianna Wu stepped down or took a medical leave, not fully stepped down, because people were, kind of making a big fuss online. One thing you do really smartly is you stay off social media. You don't get on Twitter. The amount of life energy I've lost to that is just
I
so
find
stupid.
that it's almost impossible to tell who's being serious on social media, and it's too easy to get mad about something that someone is just trying to incite someone about. That, like, it's just, I can't.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, I avoid
Fair.
it. But
Good for you.
at the
You know,
same time, you lose a lot of battles and shit by just not existing there. So it's tough for me to say that everyone should do what I do in terms of non-engagement.
I got you. Yeah. You'd probably find a lot of interest in your stuff because of your fan base currently, but also you'd be inviting more than that, just them. It's not,
Some people are
That's
built
why I
for
recommend
that
starting
fight.
a cult. Go ahead.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Do you watch Yellow
I
Jackets?
mean, my cat has one. Seems to be going well for her.
Yeah. I got rid of the cat, by the way. I switched her
Congratulations.
out for a plant. I can tell you that story. And she belonged to the house behind me. They didn't, weird story. Kind of a crazy ending. Anyway, and then I'll finish this thought because I wrote it down, and then we'll wrap up a little. I guess we're kind of heading towards an hour and a half, or, oh my God, it's already there. Cenk ran for president, and a big part, it's very expensive to do any kind of campaign like that. So you have to get lawyers involved with all this filing for every state to get on ballots. And he wasn't even allowed to run based on him being a naturalized citizen, which you have to be born in America in order to run for president. That's what's well understood. But Cenk had this whole case he was making based on some Supreme Court case. I don't remember the name right now, but I think from the 60s, that affirms that all naturalized citizens are supposed to be treated, I think it's the 14th Amendment, exactly the same as any citizen. It's not fair to differentiate any rights whatsoever if you're naturalized or natural born. And so he went around to different states making this case, develop with legal representation. And so you can look at the FEC filings on his PAC that he started for it, Cenk for President, I think it's called. And it's very expensive. The law firm expenses are crazy. It's just $25,000, $25,000. It's, I can't believe how fucking expensive lawyers are. What a rip. What a joke. That's another part of this thing. And anyway, what I think might happen is, and just as far as the Constitution though, I think it's the only thing that it delineates on its own separately from the 14th Amendment is the natural born requirement to be president. So like, even though that case says the 14th Amendment must require everybody gets the same rights, whether you're naturalized or not, but there's this one exception, and that would be where they would kind of legally try to wrangle this, and it would obviously be something that would end up at the Supreme Court. So what I worry is that Cenk did all this legal foundation, legal kind of groundwork, and I guess his cases were cited, or at least one of them was cited by some judge in some ruling about a Trump being allowed to be on the ballot. So it had some like impacts that way, but it's plausible that Cenk's foundation of legal work he did in his 2024 run for presidency, it's just so nuts that he thought he could do it, might enable Elon Musk to become president, because it might be that they try to, I doubt this will happen. I think the chances of this are low, but there's because I actually support the idea that naturalized citizens should be allowed to be president. I think maybe a time frame, like like
an
20,
interesting conversation, at least
20 years,
like,
or, you know, like if you're
yeah.
immigrant here at age 5, if you're 55 years old, like that seems like plenty of time, but I don't think it should be like 2 years. It's like maybe some sort of time would be how I would do it. But anyway, so my whole all this is to say that I think that one of the Cenk's contributions to the world will helping Elon Musk become president.
It'd be hilarious blowback if that is the if that's the end result of these cases.
Yeah.
God, that's a bummer.
Okay.
Yeah, it sucks that like I have no interest in like Cenk running for something, but that argument of naturalized citizens having the same rights as, you know, born citizen, I think that's a valid conversation to have.
Yeah.
Just it sucks that it's him that's doing it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's, I don't know. I hope the project that I'm doing catches on and gets into some other bigger heights. I like to have these kind of conversations with people, you know, it'll be really fun. I think I've had a few with but with strangers generally, no offense. No, sorry that you're not a stranger, but like, I really hope that the film, all the work that I've put in, the payoff for me is going to be maybe, or at least one of them will be, being able to like explore these topics with other people that are like interested in the details, because it's been a pretty lonely experience mostly, sort of grappling with all this stuff. So final question, if you guys still got another 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Can I, probably longer, but we don't have to go deep on this, but so where's the Sandy Hook trial punishment thing at now? And has Alex just renamed his businesses? Like, how's that? What kind of time frame are we looking at there? You know what question
Well, I think I'm on the outside of a lot of this, so like don't take me as, I've tried to be as like watching his show to get my information as much as possible, because I assisted with the Texas Sandy Hook case in an advisory capacity
with Mark Bankston.
Yeah, because
Awesome.
I felt that there was a reason to do that, and there was a withholding of the knowledge that I had if I didn't agree to help. I don't know in what way I can be of use in any of the bankruptcy stuff. So for me, I have had a real, I don't want to be involved. I don't want to know things. So I don't know anything.
Well, okay, hold on. Go ahead.
I know what Alex says on his show, and I know what, you know, some court documents that are public and things.
But let's hit
from that.
Someone who doesn't know what happened, though, not the whole like Sandy Hook story, the harassment, but what did the courts decide? He was found civilly liable and then forced to do what? And then that's kind of,
he was found liable by default. Because he was, you know, there was a Connecticut case, and then there was a Texas case, and then there's actually 2 other cases in Texas that never ended up going to the trial phase of it because of all the bankruptcy and everything. But there was Scarlett Lewis and Neil Heslin in Texas sued for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress.
Parents of the kids.
Yeah, there was a couple who had a kid who was killed at the school, and then in Connecticut there was a group of plaintiffs who were suing Alex there, and so in both cases, he did everything possible in order to not have this ever see the courtroom. He did every legal maneuver possible. He constantly, he would replace lawyers when it was becoming a thing where, like, we're going to court in a month or whatever. They're like, oh, I need time because I just fired my lawyer. He did not show up for depositions. He did not provide responsive documents to discovery process. In multiple occasions, he sent completely unqualified and unprepared people to testify as the company at corporate representative depositions. And so he, along the way, was getting these penalties, and he was getting these reprimands from the judges that, like, you are not cooperating at all with this process, and we need you to. And eventually the strategy ran out, and the courts were like, hey, you have it's almost as if you didn't respond to anything. You might as well have done nothing. You're not
Right.
cooperative with the process. You lose by default. You
I
had
see.
your opportunity to defend yourself from this claim that was being made, and you're wasting everyone's time. He likes to say that they just, put the hammer down on him because it's a railroading and a show trial. But he had every opportunity to cooperate, and the history bears that out. If you go back and look into the cases at all, he was very intentional about not getting to the courtroom because he knew he would lose.
Right.
He knew that in a courtroom he could yell, and then he would be told to shut up, and the information that would be presented would show him to be in the wrong. So when he was lost by default, they went to the penalty stage of the case, where a jury would decide what he owed for this.
So that's like its own
And so,
trial, like a penalty kind of civil thing. Is that uncommon for civil cases if it's big enough that justifies it?
I don't know. I think
Yeah.
a lot of folks have the right to do it.
I
Maybe
see.
sometimes people don't exercise that right
Mm.
because it is maybe a little bit wasteful. And I think a lot of times people end up negotiating. I think a lot of times you come to like, okay, let's go have our lawyers talk to each other and we'll figure out the number. But Alex decided to use the exact same strategies of trying to kick the ball down the road, to make sure that this never happened or that this case was disrupted, the penalty phase of it. And he did what he could, but it didn't work eventually. Like, time ran out,
Yeah.
and he ended up on the hook for a lot of money. Then he tried various other things to avoid and prolong the consequences. There were bankruptcies, there were appeals, there were just whatever opportunity, whatever was available to him to try and postpone, he was doing. Now, in the background of all of that, he and his company were diversifying. They were creating new entities that were outside of Alex's estate or anything that the courts could touch.
Right.
And so they've now, they had their supplement industry, they had their supplement business. Now that is through, it used to be InfoWars store. Now it's Dr. Jones Naturals. His dad owns. Their InfoWars store is now the Alex Jones store, which is owned by a company called Bigley that Alex doesn't own. InfoWars itself is being moved over to Alex Jones Live or Alex Jones Network, that Alex himself doesn't own. But I'm not sure if he owns it, but the Secretary of State documents show that the only officer of that company is one of Alex's employees. So it's very clear that
bullshit.
in the meantime, while they wait and postpone the consequences coming, they've shifted all of this stuff out of Alex's direct ownership. So the courts can, take what they want and seize InfoWars, but InfoWars is a fake company in a lot of sense. All of the meaningful aspects of his media stuff and the supplement sales have been transitioned over into this other entity. And so now we're coming up on, at the beginning of June, there's a hearing that will likely, I don't know. You always think that everything is going to be like, aha, here's where you have no more excuses.
Yeah.
But it feels like this hearing will involve whether or not the state courts can put like a lock on the door and take his stuff in order to pay off creditors. And there's almost no chance he's going to come out ahead in that one. And so it feels like we're heading towards the brick wall, that there's no more excuses around. But I don't know. Alex has been like, there's been a lot of doom in his voice and shit. And but that's happened before too. And I've been convinced that, like, well, the end is near for this fuck. And
Does that end?
He manages.
Finish. Go ahead. Okay.
I was saying he manages to find new life somehow pretty well.
Well, I feel like the system is sort of just the fact that he has these, rich guy powers, the lawyers, or I don't know what his expenses are, but no doubt it's legal assistance that's not available to someone of a lower class who doesn't have those legal foundations or the connections he
Definitely.
has.
And him and one of his lawyers talked about that dynamic, like even on the show, where they hope that they can just stall things enough that the other party can't afford to keep the litigation going and will agree to some settlement that's not in their best interest.
Right.
Like, I think that is an underappreciated superpower that people with access to a lot of money have.
Yes, the system is, and not only that, they wrote the rules to kind of bias against the people with the least amount of power anyway. Those most deserving of justice are the least likely to get it. That's that's kind of something I've developed from my project, is just the nature of power is about different accountability standards. And anyway, so what does that brick wall look like? Not that you can predict it, but like, is there a version of this where the plaintiffs receive all the money they were awarded? It seems unlikely they're going to get the entire amount, and also / question, is it possible Alex will stop broadcasting? It feels like that's never going to happen.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
They never would have done the kind of moves that they have done if there was any plan to stop.
Right.
Like, there's no reason to set up this fake other Alex Jones network thing if you weren't trying to avoid consequences of this bankruptcy and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So obviously he's going to keep going regardless of whatever outcome there is. And I don't have any sense of what kind of money the plaintiffs would end up getting. It obviously won't be what they got awarded, because it's a gigantic amount of money. That even if you sold off all of Alex's assets, he wouldn't be able to pay that off. The problem fundamentally comes down to, the state courts can rule that the plaintiffs and the creditors can take Alex's shit, and then there's that giant desk in his studio and the equipment and those things that InfoWars owns, and there's a value to that, and you can sell that off, and that's definitely worth something. But the company itself doesn't have any value without Alex. So you're taking, you take this intellectual property that is like InfoWars, InfoWars.com, these things, and you own them, and they're worth, I don't know, a couple $1 million to Alex maybe, but they're worth almost nothing to anybody else.
Right.
And that is the problem that a one talent business kind of has. With Alex creating all this other fake stuff on the side, if he just goes over there, now that's InfoWars.
And that's the legal system. That's a way around it. That does work. Just changing the switching to the house next door and selling selling your brooms at the shop next door. I don't know why I'm thinking about Red Dead Redemption 2, but just like moving the barrel of brooms to the building next door, that works, right? Barrels, brooms being the main product of the
flabbergasted that it does, but
Yeah.
it seems like it does.
Yeah, that
It's
sucks. That's bullshit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is there a hope for the families to get at this point? I mean, is justice an endpoint, or is justice a process? Like, there's got to be a point where they want to be past it, and this is behind them. Does that mean that they're getting payments every month for a percentage of something, or does it mean, okay, we got 10 million out of this, we were supposed to get 100 something or whatever it was, it's time to just stop, it's been enough? I mean, what does that seem like?
Yeah.
Do you have a thought about
I
that?
try to be careful because, like, I can't speak for them.
Yeah, of course not.
And
Yeah.
and they are all different people.
Yeah.
And there's other people who did not file a lawsuit who are also as affected by the events that transpired, and they're kind of unheard or unthought of victims in the whole thing too.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I think it's different for everybody, and I imagine for some there is the fact that it was able to go to court and there was an accounting of actions. Maybe that part of the process is helpful for some. I imagine some people might be disappointed by the way that the legal system is unable to, like, really handle this,
Right.
and mete out a appropriate punishment for someone who can just avoid shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard. It's a really hard thing, and my empathy is for them, and whatever they want out of it, I hope they have gotten something.
Absolutely. Yeah. And did the Onion buy info? What was that little news cycle? That turned out to not be true when the Onion allegedly got a hold of the website or something. That was like January, February.
So there was an auction that Alex's stuff was supposed to be auctioned off. Now, there was a company that was working with Alex and his folks that was trying to bid for it. And then there was the Onion. And the Onion had worked out an arrangement with the trustee or the people involved with the holding of the estate, where some of the plaintiffs would forgive the debt that Alex had to them, or some of the debt that they had had to them, and that would be considered part of their bid for buying InfoWars.
Okay.
So that was the arrangement that they had, and that sale got invalidated by the bankruptcy courts, and instead of running another sale for it, it just I don't know what they did. They just didn't do anything, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, Onion had it for a minute, for a second.
So there was some legitimacy to the story, but it got invalidated.
Yeah. They had won that auction, and then the auction got thrown out.
Okay. All right. Do you have? Okay. God, I have one more question. Do you mind?
Sure.
We'll get it to 2 hours, and then we'll say bye.
We're here.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. I really missed doing stand up with you back in those. That was the one time in my life where I felt like I had a community that I belonged into, and I didn't even do a great job at that. But I look back on how miserable I was back then, but then I was also like probably never happier.
Yeah.
So,
It's ironic.
yeah, I know. Just like, God damn it. But okay, so Trump, and I'm thinking about Trump pardoning all these criminals. I know that you can't pardon civil cases, so Alex Jones probably wishes he could, but he wouldn't. He can't, I don't think, unless Trump just decides one day. But like, we hear about these scammers who, like, some guy scammed $10 million out of his nursing home company, bought a yacht, and then his mother went to some $1 million a plate Trump dinner, and now he's pardoned. So it's basically, if you steal enough money, you just got to give the president some of that money that you stole, and then you're good in terms of pardon. That's not necessarily what I'm asking you to get into, but like, where does Alex fit into the Trump power structure with his Roger Stone connection? I don't hear about Roger Stone much in the news. Maybe I'm missing it through my algorithm. But where does Alex fit into the Trump
Alex's
world? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, him and Roger are less close these days. I mean, they're still friends. There wasn't like I think that Alex probably couldn't afford paying him, and so he went over to Frank's speech and was like with Mike Lindell posse. Roger was more, he shifted over there.
Oh, Roger was being paid by Alex for some time as part of as a character on the show.
Oh, he was the co-host of Owen Schroyer's show, The War Room, for a while. Like, I don't know the exact arrangement of what the money was, but yeah, he was making some money.
I see. Well, that's not surprising that the thread was money holding it. Yeah.
Yeah. The in terms of like with Trump and pardoning, like I think that there's less a chance of pardon stuff for this and more like I think that there's a political usefulness that Trump has with these stories about like weaponization of the courts against patriots and stuff. Like you could see a version of him creating an executive order that could be used to go against these people who have filed lawsuits against Alex.
Yeah.
Something like that. Like they used the courts as a weapon to silence a pro-Trump voice. That would be where I would be more worried about the intersection of Trump and Alex with this. But I wonder if Trump really wants to be involved with Alex that much. He's very 2016 in terms of like you'll see Trump go on with these streamers and stuff. Like he went on Rogan, he went on with
Jake Paul and
Theo Vaughn.
Yeah, that one
and
young
like
guy.
Aiden Ross, he went on to that guy's stream. And like you have Alex had a little interview with him in 2015 and he's not come back. And I think that speaks to the amount that Trump thinks that Alex is a relevant media place to exist. I think that he's in the past.
And he clearly doesn't need it. Yeah, like there's plenty of other. It's not like it's not working for him. He's globalized corruption through his tariffs and through his foreign policy. Yeah.
Yeah. And like Alex is somebody who's in his pocket to a point to a level that like you never would need to even throw like a little treat his way in order to keep him happy. He's not committed here.
Right.
He's not going anywhere. And the more you tried to work with him or you tried to be involved, the more he might know if he ever decided to turn on you. So there's almost like I feel like for Trump, just from a strategy perspective, there's no reason to be involved with Alex. Like it all seems like negatives.
Right. Besides Alex just being useful to the media environment anyway. I mean, in some way.
But he's going to do that anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like with Elon Musk, Alex has I've fallen off your shows somewhat for the last couple of months, but like so forgive me if you've covered all this, but like has Elon Musk and Alex, does he ever / folded into this sort of tech dystopia that the tech bros are trying to impose with Neuralink and Starlink and all sorts of, now we have Golden Dome. I mean, couldn't be bigger deep state than weapons in space, supervillain stuff with brain implants and with AI robot replacements to try to, because I think that's like fundamentally labor is about organizing particles and information, and they don't need humans to do that if they can replace humans. They tried slavery is solves their problem because you can deny someone's humanity. We disempower slavery, although we still have plenty of it, obviously. Now you have humans who want rights and who are messy and who start unions and who get sick and who need time. Humans are a big problem for the bosses. If they could replace everything with AI and or robots to do the particle organizing, I mean, it couldn't get more. I think that's literally their conspiracy. Is they're not going to do anything about global warming. They're just going to use the last couple generations of humanity to incubate robot labor in order to produce like factory, like luxury factory, continent spanning factories to produce their luxury lifestyles. They'll probably maintain some populations of humans that they can abuse and exploit, more than likely for some time. But this is a pretty grim picture of the future, but it's what they're trying to do. Like Mark Zuckerberg wants to replace everybody's friends with AI bots and stuff like that. And these guys were standing behind Trump at the inauguration. Anyway, all this is to say is, where does Alex's power, or at least maybe not power, but how does he perceive himself in terms of shouldn't you push back against that shit if you're concerned about being dominated by a cabal of elites?
If
Or
your
is he for it?
principles meant anything, or the stories that you were telling it meant anything for the, the entirety of your career, then yes, absolutely. But it doesn't. None of that shit means anything. And Alex is a huge fan of Musk,
Yeah.
to the point of he constantly was talking to that Adrian Dittman guy, who sounded like Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah,
and
that.
everybody pretended was him.
Right.
He would interview that dude all the time, just to create this idea of a proximity with Musk. And yeah, no, it's
so weird.
That's another one of the like really big dissonant aspects of what he's doing in the present day compared to what his career was supposed to be about. Like, he should be fucking so against Musk, but he's not. He should be so against Mark Zuckerberg, and he's softened on Zuckerberg because he was on Rogan, and he seems to like Trump. And so all of that stuff is not really all that important anymore.
It's just hierarchy. Honestly, I think it's so simple. It's just power. There's a class at the top that wants to look out for itself. There's solidarity at the top. I call it Rat King solidarity. Their tails are intertwined, and they can't separate, so they're loyal to each other. But they're just this like snarling ball of angry rats that are destroying the planet. That's how it seems to be that's the project, and especially the billionaire classes, particularly with the assumption of political power. More publicly through Musk types and the Zuckerberg type. It's the billionaires that don't seek attention that are also that they really escape any kind of scrutiny.
That's the scary shit. Yeah, I think that hierarchy is a lot of it. It explains a lot. Maybe not everything, but it's definitely a big piece of it.
Yeah. Accountability and yeah, and then a final thought that I just had. You mentioned that Trump hasn't talked to Trump hasn't. I can't believe it's been since 2015 and he hasn't had an interview with him. That's amazing. But similarly, the Young Turks, Cenk is frustrated by Bernie not going on TYT in a long time. So there's a
lot of entitlement that people feel.
One little parallel, because he had and AOC too. AOC, like TYT had AOC on a whole lot during her first climb up from a nobody status in New York, and I think she was a Justice Democrat, if I'm not mistaken. But Cenk has said he's not resentful of it, but it's very clearly he was, especially when the rally that they did came into town a few months ago. He wasn't invited to do it because I was at
opener slot.
I was at a Bernie rally in 2016 filming for TYT as a cameraman. Like I did road work during that time when Jimmy Dore and I went on the road and went to different Bernie rallies, and we went to one Trump rally too. But Cenk would not that at every Bernie rally, but at this one particularly in California, Cenk was on stage who introduced Bernie to the stage. He's the guy who said the next president of the United States of America. I have a video of it, and so like that's one nadir, apex, apogee, whatever, what zenith.
You gotta figure these words out.
And to go from there to Bernie goes to the rally and not even inviting him, and his nephew is obviously also far outpaced his success too. So that was a funny parallel that I thought of. So all right,
the old eat the young. Wait, the other way around. The young eat the old.
Yes, and everybody eats grapes.
Yep,
as the saying goes. The customer is always right in matters of taste. Did you know that's the full? I'm sure you probably knew that. It's not the customer's always right.
I didn't actually know that.
Yeah. The original is in matters of taste. That is to say, if you're helping somebody pick out their blinds or their colors for their house, don't make them feel shitty about their taste. But it turned into the tyranny of the consumer because Americans have no power in any other realm of their world other than bitching to the manager and causing hell for retail workers. All right, why did I give you that one? Well, Dan, congratulations on all your good work, your success, and keep going. And you guys got some more tours coming up? You want to plug?
Nah.
Those sound exhausting, honestly. I'd be thrilled if I had a career that could do one of those, but at the same time, I bet that's kind of tiring.
Well, and it's also a weird thing to do. Like, talk about an episode of Alex Jones in front of, a collection of people. It's really awesome that people enjoy it, but I really, really can't in the moment when I'm on stage understand why anyone enjoys it. And so in particular, when we were in New York on the last time we did some shows, I was just sweating, just uncomfortably, visibly sweating from like why is this happening? What are we doing? I
Not
can't
the
get
lights.
over that.
What? Well, okay. Why can't you get over that?
I
I mean,
the
I'm
lights
not
were a
saying
part
it's
of it.
it's what,
The lights were definitely a part of it, but
Okay.
I can't. Not the whole thing.
but it was also this feeling. I mean, I understand the part where you don't quite get it, but the pattern recognition has to kick in and just be like, well, this is happening. I mean, not only am I lucky enough to be here, I'm placing myself in your shoes right now, but also other shows clearly do things, and obviously this audience seems to. I've heard some of your live shows; they seem to be quite well made and well received, and
Sure, people hiss
but-
at us periodically.
is it a
Yeah.
good way? Is it a good hiss or a bad hiss?
Yeah, like hissing about a figure that we're talking about who's a real piece of shit.
Oh, I see. Joining in on the ire. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I don't have a plug on any of that that I want to make, but I wanted to loop back around to a question that you asked me earlier that
Yeah.
was about the production stuff of, like these old episodes and I found these episodes going back, like the Kelly Rushing episodes. I found them going back, going over these episodes in the past. But since that time, there is a resource that someone built that is an interactive search tool that includes all of Alex's shows from the past, other InfoWars shows, all kinds of other right-wing shows.
Wow.
At fight.fudgy.org. And this person has created an invaluable research tool that has, Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, David Icke
Transcript searches.
and audio recording. Like it has the links to the audio and all of the transcripts. Obviously, they're created through an AI tool.
Yeah.
So I would say some of the pronunciation that people have, you might not be able to find some weird words and things, but it is such a valuable thing.
Yeah.
I didn't use it entirely for this, but it did help me find a few things that helped polish up. And it for people who want to dig into some of these things, it's very helpful.
That's great.
If people are looking for specific things. If it had existed when the Sandy Hook trials happened, there would have been no reason for the lawyers to ever need to contact me necessarily.
Right.
Because it would have been something that they could have used to find every time
Right.
that these names came up or
You were you were the bridge from humanity to the AI. You served your role. No, but that's awesome. I mean, those searches are so helpful. I use transcript searching on YouTube constantly. And as someone that's been looking at that quite a while, the transcripts auto transcribing in 2011, 2012, 2013 when it first came around was brutal. Maybe 1 out of 20 words was accurate, and they're hilarious too. Some of them are still up. I got to imagine YouTube will go back and reprocess some of that. You got to think about the amount of layers of ash, layers of dirt built up archaeologically, but digitally on YouTube. Like every single year is its own strata of digital stuff. And of course, okay, anyway, starting to head off. But the transcript searching has gotten so much better. That's why I asked if it has it. That's the fact that it's transcript search is so big. It's so much better than just some titles, Yeah, that's awesome. Fantastic. Fight.fudgy.org. Or at least search for that. Cool.
That's that person made that, and it's there's a million uses for it, and people who want to dive into some of the back catalogs of these freaks, it's very helpful.
I'm gonna take a look at it. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. So great, and same old microphone as ever. We talked about you ever gonna spend some of those big bucks on a $90 Shure SM7578? You don't even have to buy the $400 one. Just get the good. Do you have that one? The $90 one?
I've got a Sennheiser. I don't know. I've had it for a long time, and I don't.
The funny thing is,
I got
your audience would be mad if you got a better
arms.
mic because they're so used to your tone that you'll sound different with a better mic, and your audience will be like, "This isn't the show I like. What the fuck? This is different."
If I sound more like I actually sound, it'll annoy them.
You got a great voice.
There's some
Come on.
distortion. It's through the mic.
You got a wonderful voice, even better than mine.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I interrupted a thought. Did you remember it?
Oh no, just that I at one point got microphone arms because I wanted to try and make like, let's be professional. Let's
Yeah.
make this look like a studio because I you have a microphone arm and I
Yep.
love that. I love how that looks.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel right for me and Jordan. It just something about holding the mics.
Okay.
It's primitive.
Yeah. Fair.
So I had
Hey,
to throw
some
away
people
the
drive with their
arms.
head out the window. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with you, but I get it.
It feels good.
I like
Getting
this
all those
because
bugs.
it hides my shameful face. Although I am very self-conscious that now that my mustache is erasing all the way up, it looks like I have a Hitler mustache, and it's I do need to. I am
bring that up.
approaching. My beard's been falling out for about 5 years, and it's like it sucks to shave it as much as it sucks to keep it. But now I look at myself on camera and I go, oh God, I just look like I have a Hitler mustache. Oh no. So it's been a big curse, big part of this whole nightmare that I've been found myself in and my life's goal is to try to get my stress levels and my conditions down to a point where maybe my beard will grow back, because that might happen. It is not necessarily gone forever. So
If
I
you
used
never
to have a lot
moved
more
away
ambition.
from Chicago, you could say it's a Michael Jordan mustache.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or I should just get a fake for this part. Yeah. But I am self-conscious about it. And anyway, that's fun. But no, the arm helps hide. You probably would get used to an arm. I mean, don't you find yourself having your hand? I mean, don't you sometimes just having both hands free? I'm not going to talk you into it. I feel like you're committed to it, and that's fine.
Yeah. At this point, I'm entrenched.
No problem. I don't. It'd be weird if I cared a lot about that and got upset.
I'm gonna get a text from you later. Get a new mic.
Yeah. Well, or an arm. I actually kind of want to build one out of wood, though. I have a whole lot of extra wood.
Oh, that would be cool.
It'd be kind of neat because you could do bolt joints and stuff, and it would look really interesting, I think, to make a project of that. But I wrecked my wrists at my woodworking job, and I love this mallet that I have there. But yeah, so it's hard for me to do woodworking.
Cool
I have a small shop on my balcony.
Never seen like a microphone arm of wood. I think that would look really cool.
Yeah, right.
It's a cool idea. Yeah.
And you can get inserts for the wood, like you can get metal, inserts that fit the right, screw size and stuff. So you'd be able to modulate. I think that would be really interesting. Yeah, it would probably not work for the first several tries, but I'd eventually figured that's the sort of puzzle my brain loves to do. And maybe I mean I do have all the footage. Bumrush Industries was my socialist woodworking business video. I wanted to make videos of building shit stools out of found furniture. So the YouTube channel Bumrush Industries does have some videos on there. 5 videos.
Right.
People comment, "These are great. I can't wait for more of them." I'm like, well, I gave up. I can't.
I think you have your next project now.
I would much rather
arm.
do woodworking content and socialist brain stuff too. But I got to finish this fucking TYT thing, and it's absolutely driving me bonkers. Since my greatest dream, and I've been struggling to get. I thought the fundraiser would maybe pick up on a life of its own, and sort of people would want to share it and stuff. And I'm still not ruling out that that'll happen because I have to do a big press blast, which I'm trying to put together. But I just need enough to get me 6 months of my bills paid so I can just Tony Stark this thing to go into a cave and
Elon
do what
Musk
I'm good
this
at. No. You mean hire someone else's ingenuity and pretend I did it? No.
Oh, Tony Stark was based on Elon Musk, baby.
Shut up. Don't ruin my dream here, okay? My point is I want to be maximum autistic on this video without the stress of money for 6 months so I can finish the movie the way it deserves to be told. Really do a great job at it. Really get hyper focused on it. Just straight pure lean hard into my traits that give me that power. That's my strength. Instead, I'm flailing all over the internet trying to get people to pay attention to the thing, and it's not working at all. And all I'm doing is spinning my wheels and delaying the whole thing into greater depths of agony. So that's we'll see.
That's the struggle, right? Yeah.
Well, they don't make documentaries. They make them in groups for lots of reasons, and my there you go. How's that?
Hey,
a little bit of light. I feel like I turned into a blueberry.
Why did you turn off the light halfway through?
My head was killing me.
Okay.
The photons were causing issues for me. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that was start. I can kind of, I'm masking heavily right now because we're on air and we're doing a recording, and then I'll decompress. Yeah. Oh no, I'm doing great. It's not like but I can handle the light a little bit when I'm in that state, but at certain times, like I have this, I built this thing. Let me unhook the clamp. Oh fuck. So yeah, I built this out of PVC and LED strips from just some kit, right? So this is like a holder thing.
Pretty cool.
All PVC parts. When you combine an aquarium guy and a podcaster, this is what you get. And so but this has an attachment like my microphone or my camera is actually like a PVC mount thing that I use to take it in on and off with a clamp.
Okay.
And so I fucked up my Blueberry lights though, because these things are shit. The connections suck, and they come apart easy. They're kind of fun to play with and get them. But
I've got some of those for like indoor plant lights. They're good, but also kind of shitty.
Yeah, they're junk. I mean, you can buy different kind of quality levels, but also I take them apart and I take this thing apart and put it back together on the reg. So like it inevitably is gonna wear out. So
I feel like you can't be somebody who makes YouTube videos without having some kind of like lighting like that. You know, you need that.
I do like the blue light from the left. It adds a lot to my thing. And I'm doing some gaming stuff. Okay, I'm just rambling here. This is like what I would be doing if Dan let me into his house without my all right, Dan.
Never.
I'm trying to get the gaming video. So okay, dude.
Get some lights over here. Yeah.
I brought over my PVC rig. Do you want me to cut some? I have this cool knife that cuts them. It's this tool that so
does sound pretty cool.
knowledgefight.com. Everybody, obviously, if you're already aware, you could go check it out. Maybe a live show in the distant future, none planned right now, but
maybe I'll come out to LA and bother you.
I would love that. Please do. No, for sure.
Live show and bother your ass.
I care. I feel safe enough around you that I won't even clean up. Yeah,
that's very nice. That's quite a compliment.
I'll let you see the snack wrappers that I step upon every time I walk to the bathroom. No, I don't have the floor full of wrappers. I'm not Asmund Gold. I don't do that. Actually, I'm quite.
Get his ass.
I love my vacuum, by the way. I vacuum, and I feel so proud of the repairs I've done on it, and it's a great little Shark Navigator, lavender. It's powerful.
Are we ending with a plug for your vacuum?
Yes.
Is that how we're okay?
Yes. That's how this goes. So wonderful stuff. Appreciate it so much. Don't hang up.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're saying goodbye. And everybody, don't forget to like and subscribe. All right. Shoot.